Hello, welcome. This is Osek. Today we'll be talking about what is actually happening in West African country. The coup d'etat that has been a norm in some of the West African states, and the reason why ECOWAS is actually agitating, and the reason why they want to invade Niger, which is the latest country that the coup d'etat happened last week. And today I've been joined by a renowned journalist, Wisdom Obina, and he's speaking from from United Kingdom. So Obina, welcome to the show.
Good day to you, Kenneth, and it's a pleasure to be here, particularly a very interesting discussion at this point in time.
Okay. Okay. So I want to thank you for actually spending this time to come to this show. So I want to start with some questions about what is actually going on in West Africa.
Okay, it's not exactly something new, just that the the current version is looking like it has some trappings of something different because in the past we have seen similar similar coup situations in various countries in West Africa and similar undertones. Some people who are against a particular thing, some others who are for or indirectly supporting the current system. It's always that sort of thing. People who are against the system and those who are for the system. So it's the proverbial good against evil fighting regularly. We don't know who is good or who is evil anyway, but it's always like a two-party system where there's a sitting system that is not willing to move or that is actually leaning towards a particular order. And then there's another system that says, no, we're not in support of this order. We want something different, or we want something that is not with the normal. Doesn't mean it's good, but they always come in once of, I mean, it's a regular thing in Africa over the last 50 plus years since independence for most countries in Africa was post-colonialism was, around the 50s down to the 70s and 80s and even down to the 90s when we had the latest like South Africa and the others. But there is also some quarters who believe that there is a resurgence of what we call Pan-Africanism. Those who are interested in a new trend for Africa, and it's not just in the countries where we have coups; it's in the countries we don't have coups yet. We saw what happened in what is going on in a country like South Africa, the likes of Julius Malema, who are actually saying we don't want what is going on from the past. We don't want a case where some things will be happening close to our country. There is this feeling some of them have that they are still under colonialism, what they call neo-colonialism, and then imperialism. So that feeling makes some of them still. And then in Nigeria, we had a protest 2 years ago by a good number of the youths of the country. I mean, about 40-something% of the population was out, which are predominantly youths anyway, on the streets. Yes, it was under a tag, but it was just an umbrella name for a lot of other things. So agitations in Africa are not new, but there is a current wave that is really surprising at the moment.
Okay, that's really impressive. So in Africa, there's been in Africa, particularly West African, there's been this struggle of who is in charge and who is actually who is in charge and the democracy and the military rule. So there has been this shift from the democracy to military rule, whereby these military juntas are actually citing economic downturn and some sort of infrastructural degradation and corruption. So why is it that the coup is only in Africa that we are actually hearing about it? For example, in America, they are actually practicing democracy and some other European countries. So why is it that it's been only Africa? Why do you think the coup is only happening in Africa?
Um, there might be lots of answers to the question. I might not sound as an authority in terms of military matters, as my closest to military is my parents, but I'm not a military person. But one thing I do understand is that colonialism left a lot of positives, but a lot of negatives also within the African continent. Yes, they were not the only ones that were colonized, but you look at countries that were colonized also, majority of them are still struggling with their democracy. It is that the democracy is redefined to their own space. Maybe a democracy that is tagged another name. Some will say, some political experts will say pseudo-democracies, others will say mixed democracy, others would even go as far as merging what Karl Marx and the others will call kakistoplotomubocracy. It's a lot of things intertwined. Wow. But it just shows a form of democracy that is not pure. It is like contaminated, or it is a designs. They are trying to localize democracy to their particular terrain. So I think that's one major reason why Africa seems to go through coups. Decolonialism was not very good. You understand that democracy was not what was practiced in some of these countries too before colonialism. And then there is also the issue of the Berlin Conference in around 1800s, where we had the splitting of Africa into nation states. And Africa was in nation states in terms of tribes and things like that. And then they just split it into people who are not exactly known to each other. So you have countries where you have people who are not exactly related by history. They are not clearly, at least in the last 1,000 to 2,000 years, related by culture. And then they have to contest against each other. There are those who are claiming to be marginalized. There are others who are not very happy with what is going on. And then there is also the place of religion. Religion has a very strong sitting in Africa. It is so intense in Africa that some of the largest religious organizations and what have you are in Africa. Of course, it has provided some sense of succor, if you want to look at the fact that some level of knowledge and whatever developments have come through some of those systems indirectly. Yeah. But it has also left with it some tastes that are not something that should be desired. Bitter taste and bitter rivalries against them, people and each other. There is the two largest religions in Africa, Muslim and Christianity. Prayer. They pray a lot. They believe in a lot of things. And it also causes some level of rancor if one set of people do not believe in the other. Yes, in other climes, people tend to live at peace with each other, but how peaceful is it? You can look at what went on in France. In the last 5 years in France, we've had attempted and bombings at least 3 to 4 times. We can also look at countries like the United States. The most devastating damage the US has had in the last 20 plus years is the September 9/11, and what caused it is on the basis of religion and some level of ethnicity. So it is the same thing in Africa. Religion is deeply rooted in Africa because, like I would say, colonialism left a bad taste. Africans are very moral people, so they hold morality to a high extent, and then colonialism leveraged on that morality to sell religion. And then religion now replaced that morality they held so tight. So some people could go to any length, to actually defend that. So some other countries are more liberal, let me use that word. They are not exactly binded by history, while some are really binded by one history. Take, for example, China. China, for example, can easily I believe that they can easily just go through a communist system. And again, research has shown this. They can easily go through a communist system because they are largely of one ethnic group. The majority of China speak Mandarin. Yeah. You have a very small part that do Cantonese. Even the Cantonese speak Mandarin, So you have very, very little minority groups, very, very small minority groups, but majority of them, the larger mainland China, they even see Taiwan as part of them. Those are the ones that speak different languages who formed another country. But the main China are united by one history, one language, and to some extent, one belief system, because they are not largely into the major religions, for example, that are prevalent in Africa. So
In other words, the concatenation of different ethnic groups in Africa is one of the major problems. Is that what you're trying to say?
You can look at it from that angle, and you would get some support from studies and trends. But of course, that is not the only part to the puzzle. There are other parts, like you might not want to you would not be able to separate colonialism and its effect on that particular ethnic differences. So there are different parts to the matter. There is a character, there is colonialism, there is imperialism, and of course there is the crave for dominance and poverty, as well as illiteracy.
Okay, this there is this organization, ECOWAS, Economic of West African States, an organization founded in 1975, if I am correct. It has been on the news for the past days, and there has been this tension in the 16 ECOWAS states in West Africa, where they are threatening to invade Niger, an independent and a country that shares borders with Mali, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria. And there's been this tension of ECOWAS invading Niger and to restore constitutional order according to them, because there was a military coup where the democratically elected president was ejected from the office by some military junta who these military personnel have actually helped in calming down the junta that was actually supposed to take place in 2020, if I should be correct. So and also I just wanted to throw more light. What is actually the role? What is actually the role of ECOWAS in West African political landscape? Is it something of just economic? Or is it just something of economy, or is it something that has to do with military?
Okay. Think I would start with the latter, the latter question, which is the role of ECOWAS. Well, ECOWAS, for sure, like you mentioned, it would. I mean, talking about their essence would take us back to the beginning when they were formed in 1975 in May by 15 West African countries who came together for the mission of promoting economic integration in all fields of activity and around the constituting countries. So the primary roles and objectives of ECOWAS at the time was just economic integration, first of all, which was a primary objective to foster the ideal of collective self-sufficiency for its member states. This included creation of a large West African single market and the establishment of an economic monetary union. So, I mean, that's why I think they even pushed for it to be ECOWAS, it's Economic Community of West African States. So then there was also peace and stability, which was, you want to look at it as another key part. ECOWAS wants to work to ensure peace and political stability in the region. The ECOWAS monitoring group too, which is ECOMOG, it's actually a non-standing military task force that intervenes in member states undergoing conflict. It's not just about today. They intervened in Liberia when we had issues in Liberia back in the day. There's also the harmonization of policies. There is common currency, there was the idea of a single currency known as ECO.
Which has not been implemented, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way they would say it, let me sound like one of the politicians. The process is still ongoing and has just faced various challenges. So there is also the part of free movement, which would be introduction of ECOWAS passports and protocol of free movement, residence and establishment. Then there's also conflict prevention and mediation, humanitarian support, and then agriculture and water. Tackling cross-border issues also was important then, and then cultural and social affairs. I think 10 of them, those 9 to 10 points, wrap up how the main fundamental constructs and it laid the foundational capabilities for the formation of ECOWAS. But here's the thing. They've done a lot. You wouldn't say I wouldn't say they've not done anything. We had the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, which after 40 years of its creation, it remains crucial. You know, it's a crucial player in the developing markets, but we are not exactly feeling its effect as we should. So I will not really, but relating to our current discussion, which is Niger, I think it's just them trying to play their role, you know, it's them trying to act like they're playing their role. As to how they decide to go about playing their role is is something that would be maybe another question you would ask. But in terms of what they are doing in Niger, they are trying to play the role of conflict prevention, create stability, because apparently what military coups do is it destabilizes a country. It creates enemies. You know, this is a bloodless coup. Let's also be very very.
Yeah, one of its kind.
Let's be very yes. Let's be a bit fair. It's a bloodless coup, and did not involve maybe people dying and some of those things we've seen in the past. You know, so Bazoum, who was there, he was just there for like 2 years, I think. Apparently, like you mentioned, there is the military junta, there's this issue and that, you know, and we've had several military issues in the same Niger. So I think that's what ECOWAS is just trying to do. It's trying to say, okay, people will not just wake up and decide, okay, we're tired of democracy and want to establish a military order. So we just wake up and, you know, as military men, and because there would always be military. So I think that's where they're trying to play that role of a conflict resolution. As to how they decide to go about it is a question for another day.
Okay. You know, I strongly believe it's not something of someone just waking up and deciding to like dump democracy and incorporate something like military rule, which all of us know that it is very, very harsh to the humankind. But one of the main issues here is that these people have been clamoring for a good democracy. You know, there are democracy and there is this democracy in Africa. So when it comes to democracy, if you're talking about the real authentic democracy, then you talk about the West, the United States of America, where institution actually works. But in these states of Africans that have actually been mad with some military juntas orchestrating this coup d'etat, you would find out that there is a problem somewhere. Like they are actually clamoring for something. They are asking a certain country that have been that have been kind of like exploiting them and that have been exfiltrating their resources to leave the country. And then that's actually comes with this question: why do you think there is this rise in African countries, the francophone countries, trying to evict the one of the main colonizers of these francophone countries, which is France. France has been in West Africa for over very long period of time. And talking about France, Niger specifically, France has been in Niger, and France has actually been in good relationship with some of the African countries that the military junta actually took place, also something like Mali, Burkina Faso. So the France government has actually been in good terms with them, even though they might condemn the coup d'etat that actually happened back then in 2022 and 2020 or something like that. But this Niger is a point of there is like there is no way France is actually letting go of Niger coup. Why? What is the interest of France in Niger, and why is it that they are not letting this military coup that took place they're not letting it go? Why are they so much vested in restoring constitutional order according to them, and reinstating the evicted president? who is Mohamed Bazoum, who has been who was a parliamentarian in 2010, where there was military coup in the same Niger, and he supported the military coup in Niger, and also France supported the military coup in Niger. So why is it that they are agitating for constitutional restoration in Niger right now, that this military coup has actually taken place? What is the interest of difference?
Okay, I think first let me start by saying that when a man is pushed to the wall, he could bounce back with a double effort. And with all due respect to the countries who try to establish their territories and what have you in other countries, because I want to start with the beginning of the question. Some of these countries have not covered themselves in glory, truth be told, in how they've moved on to other countries. I respect a lot of countries for the developments in those countries and how far they've been able to go in terms of their personal developments and the way they've conducted themselves as a country. But it becomes very interesting when another country tries to establish themselves in another country, and then another country seeks to decide what happens in another country. I think it is very insulting to the people, because if you listen, it's been a while we had a military coup and people are excited. People are happy about it.
Exactly.
So to not paint the issue and to not sound very diplomatic, Burkina Faso, the people are excited. The young man now, the 34-year-old current president, Ibrahima Traore, is being celebrated because of the statements and what they believe he represents. People don't celebrate military coups.
Exactly.
Because military coups is totalitarian, is authoritarianism in disguise. So they could decide that you're not going anywhere and you're not going anywhere. There are no...
Just like what's happened in Burkina Faso, where they actually suspended a radio station or something, one of the popular radio stations.
Absolutely. It happened in Nigeria, around the 90s, 91, 92 to 1994, when Sani Abacha was the military head of state. When Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, it was the same thing. Flash also to Niger themselves. It's the same thing. You can't do anything. But people are excited because it's like we figured you out. When you tell your father, we figured you out, you can't do those things anymore. Julius Malema is outspoken, and of course he's not a friend of the West, because Julius Malema is an opposition leader in South Africa. There are some things that I feel the countries who colonized other countries in Africa particularly have not learned. They've not really learned those things. The people in Africa are also entities with their own unique belief systems, ideologies, and boundaries. And colonialism ended long time ago. First of all, these people have been very gracious to forgive. There's nothing like anybody is preparing to get back at you. You can't walk in those countries freely because you colonized them or they have any thoughts in their mind. Their mind is free. If ordinarily some people are supposed to pay for crimes they committed many years ago, but nobody's talking about that. Like Nelson Mandela, the great leader, a lot of people from that continent decided to forgive, forget, let go, and move on. But then it becomes a problem if after the colonialism, let's assume the colonialism had gone, they forgive and they forget. You then try to systemically, it is called neocolonialism, systemically try to still colonize these people without being there physically, and then still trying to be a saint in front of every single person. You take their resources, you exploit them, and these things are not hidden. Nobody is going to say, these things are not cast in stone. Every president of the United States who gets in would say, we are protecting our primary interest overseas. So when there's a military base in Niger, it is to protect the American interest in Niger. They are clearly, it's not hidden. They've clearly said it that we don't care about you. You're not our business. We care about our interest in those countries. And I think it is a bit unfair to tell another man in his own country, let's assume these were two men, to tell another man or woman that you're going to come to their space and establish a military base. When did we have a Niger military base in France to protect Niger's interest in France? There is nothing like that. But the United States, for example, have got military bases in Zambia. They've got military bases in less than 5 minutes. If there's a war in South Africa, in less than 5 minutes, they can bring down any part of South Africa they wish, directly shooting from that base. And I think it is a threat because the people can't act. You can't do anything. You can't decide, okay, this is what we want. So it is a bit unfair, but that is a lighter part of it. There's a serious part of taking the people's minerals and resources, exploiting child labor, supplying guns to tribal ethnic groups who are fighting within each other, who you incite to still fight for their own resources, and then you steal the resources. Maybe the official price is $100 or 100 pounds, and then you give them guns to fight, then they will be able to steal and siphon against each other to come sell to you for 40 pounds. And we are aware of some of these things. It's not like this continent and the people inside are not aware. They are no longer dumb. And I think that's the mistake. They still look at that continent with the eyes of 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, when they first stepped their feet on the continent and saw people who were lying on some resources that they were not really interested in because of the fact that they were not exactly as sophisticated in terms of research and development. But it has gone too far in some of those countries. For example, uranium, which is 70% of deposits of uranium on the planet, is in one country, Niger. Why is France not protecting its interest in Nigeria? Why don't we have a French military base in Nigeria?
Yeah, well, one can actually say French is not the colonizer of Nigeria, so it's British.
That's the problem. Why? That's because I'm not a Nigerian, but I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. Why do we say colonialism is over, right? There is independence.
Yeah, exactly.
You've gone back to your country.
Which I personally believe it's on paper,
Exactly. We should bury the hatchet, forgive and forget. Everybody should go to sleep. We're good now. We're good friends. We hug. We like you. We like you. You like us. But if establishing your presence, if we're no longer in colonialism, go to an English country and put your military. Protect your interest there. Or French, don't they have an interest in Nigeria? Mm-hmm. Don't they have an interest because Nigeria is a border country to Niger. They have an interest there, I'm sure. I want to believe there are French companies there. Go and protect your interest there. How many companies in Niger are even French? They belong to maybe French owners that are there for internal development purposes that are not, taking crude and oil and things like that. And these people, like I said, they figured it out. You send $15 million in aids and you take out over $100 million in elements and in minerals and things, and then re-export it back to them and collect back the money you give them for the aids. They figured it out. And I think that's why they are angry. I'm not exactly saying the French is correct or the Nigerians are correct, but what the people are angry about are not exactly out of place.
Okay. I strongly believe it is the anger in the Nigerian people and West African countries that France has been building their own economy from the resources of those countries that they colonized in the 60s. And because of that, they are basically trying to say, okay, it is over. Like, just be on your own. Let us be on our own. But the truth is that they could not do this in the democracy or the acclaimed democracy that France actually imposed on them. Because most of the Francophone countries in Africa actually have some presidents who have been in power for over 30 years, and you could see someone who barely works, and France would also be in support of the person. And France has also been very cruel to all these countries, because some of them are still paying colonizing money, or colonizer money, or what is actually called, where you pay France for colonizing you. For like, wait for a minute. Like, you came to my country, you colonized the people, you exploited their resources, then you go back to the country, you made laws. It's basically France that actually made everything, laws for these people. Their foreign reserve is in your country. Is France actually houses all their foreign reserve? France actually distributes their money, the currency they use. And we are talking about the 21st century, and France also, dictates who actually becomes the leader. If the leader that comes into place is an anti-French, then the person would mistakenly been like ejected from office, maybe through the military coup or something like that. But now that the African countries are waving the flag of Russia's, that why okay, the question here is, why is it that the West African countries are moving away from the fire to the frying pan of being a friend of Russia? I perfectly understand that Russia actually has this. They are trying to make everything equal in such a way that they are not coming to take your resources. They are coming to see you as a human being, as a brother, as an equal. They're gonna give you your respect, and you give them their respect too, which France has actually failed to do in the for all this while. And a lot of the Western African countries are becoming a very bit closer to Russia, and they are actually the Russian government are recently forfeited the not actually for it kind of like forgive the African countries for all the something million or probably $1 billion, where they are saying, you've been owing us this money, we're gonna forgive you, don't pay us again, but let us do business as brothers and sisters. Let us see respect ourselves, unlike the West. So I also believe there is kind of like a proxy war, which some countries have actually are actually trying to like push over to other region. So for example, United States of America and Russia, they have boundary, and these two countries have never been in war within each other, but there is always war in other countries where they have interests, where they send militaries, where there is clash. So they don't want to destabilize their own region, they don't want to destabilize their country, then they want to push it over to other regions. And the reason why the or if I may ask you, what is actually the reason why United States of America is so much interested in Niger? Is it because they are flying Russian flag, or is it because of the uranium deposit in Niger that everyone is actually interested in this and pushing ECOWAS country? And I'm going to come to the ECOWAS and questions about Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the current president of Nigeria. But for now, what do you think is the interest of the United States of America in Niger? Is it for the uranium, or is it to stop Russia takeover from France, knowing fully well that United States of America actually handed Africa to Britain and Russia, and that's why their foreign policy doesn't really care much about Africa. They basically understood the fact that coming to this Africa, because right now the Western African countries are hating France, right? They're not hating American, and that's why American are coming as an angel in West Africa, because because it has always been France. They've been pushing France. American cannot have a military base in Agadez without the permission of the French, who that has almost kind of like 1,000 military personnel in Niger. So what is the interest of America in Niger?
Okay, first, let me start first by saying that NATO member countries are 12 in number. of which France and the United States are part of. And what that means is that they are interested in anything that is going against them or their members, because their interests is the same. They are like an alliance group that are together for one interest. And there is one person in the group who is the father figure. And that person or that country is the United States. Now, the battle between the United States and the Soviet Union did not start today. We could go back to Fidel Castro in Cuba in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. We can't forget what happened. Now, just a quick flash. Fidel Castro, during the issues he had with, because Fidel Castro is maybe similar to what is going on now with Ibrahim Traoré and the others. He was not okay with what US was doing in his country. US had turned Cuba into a particular, and then got politicians who would run Cuba on their behalf. That sort of thing, where they are protecting their interests.
Imposing someone to protect their interests.
They call it protecting their interests. Their primary interest in foreign countries and all that. So is the same thing. When Fidel Castro decided to side with Russia or Soviet Union at the time, and the Soviet Union started supplying, the day Soviet Union decided to supply arms to Fidel Castro in Cuba, the United States said what? So the contract was the Soviet Union would build a military base in Cuba. And between Cuba and the US, if you want to launch a rocket, short time.
Very close.
What the US did was a counterattack. The US heard it that the contract had been agreed. Soviet Union are going to build a military base in Cuba, close to them. He said, what? So they sent their military, which began the war between the US and Cuba. The military base wasn't built yet.
Yeah.
Now, this is an example of what is going on between Ukraine and Russia.
Exactly.
So what Russia is doing now, and that's why sometimes when I listen to young people, particularly in NATO countries, NATO-related countries, who just castigate a particular part of the fight, oh, Ukraine is bad or Russia is bad, I just look at them because they probably have not read history.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever Russia is doing now in Ukraine is what the United States did in Cuba. Exactly. And the United States even did exactly the same thing, fought the war until how Fidel Castro survived and managed to keep his country sovereign is a question for another day. So it is the same thing. What the Russians did was supply weapons to Cuba. Why Cuba was, and then the Russians, the annoying thing part of that particular fight was that the Soviet Union left them hanging at some point. So that's on the side, but I'm just giving that to give an example.
The whole scenario
of the United States. So the United States have got an interest in what is going on in Cuba, in Niger, because of first their NATO interest, and secondly there is a Russian part to it. Now we cannot pretend. As much as we try to be diplomatic and civil, we cannot pretend that there is no secret issues. It didn't start today, like I said, between the Soviets and the United States. That is what's going on now. The war in Ukraine, what is going on in Niger. There wouldn't have been any war if there was no NATO. So
exactly.
If Ukraine had no plans, there wouldn't have been any issue. Forget every other undertone and design is, So, but coming to the latter part of the question, the hoisting of Russian flags, make no mistake about it, doesn't mean that the people are not aware that the Soviets can be tricky too.
Yeah.
The Soviets are also a country. They're no longer Soviets. I beg your pardon. The Soviet
Yeah.
Union was dissolved into member states, and now it's just Russia.
Which Putin is
Now,
probably trying
which
to reunite again and make stronger.
which will be nearly impossible because we have
Yeah,
lots of them: Poland, Belarus, and some of those neighboring countries. Even a part was ceded to. I mean, Ukraine is supposed to be a part of it too.
yeah.
Now, um, that is the basic fundamental part of the fight. The hoisting of the Russian flags is just because they are tired of anything French, and French follows NATO. So they're trying so hard to make it look like we don't want France anymore. And if we don't want France, because whatever uranium France takes out, if the US wants to do something in France, in Niger, they probably go through their embassy, yes, but you have to call the man who
Yeah,
has
exactly.
1,000 troops, who is in charge of the space. So they still operate by that Berlin 18-something conference. If you want to go to countries like Angola, you know who to call. If you want to go to Congo, you know the Belgiums to reach out to.
Which the main issue here is leave the Africans alone. Just everybody leave them alone to develop their country with their resources. Why are you still colonizing these people indirectly, colonialism, and why are you being just like a father to them, a boss? They don't want your aid. They don't want your whatever you want to like. I mean, if the people said military rule is the best thing for them, I think you should give them the chance to experience whatever they are doing. I'm personally against military rule, but it all depends on what the population of the country says. So the United States of America is so much interested in Niger because they don't want to lose their military base where they fly drone, their drone military base where they collect intelligence, and there was this mention of terrorism by the military junta that took place that took over the government in Niger, that whenever they want to fight the terrorist organizations, the deposed president would ask them to take permission from French military before an independent and sovereign country can launch an attack on a terrorist that is threatening their territory. So this thing of becoming a like I am your father. You have to take this. I have to be part of the decisions you take in your country, and whatever you're gonna do, you have to take permission from me. I think that's one of the anger that is actually pushing these populations, these large populations of Africa into enjoying and celebrating military coup that is actually happening in their country. So ECOWAS that has been in the news for short period of time right now. The president, the head of state of ECOWAS, and I mean when I mean the head of state, I mean those that have not actually been captured by military coup. Then they are decided, because those that have actually been captured by the military coup, which is I think 6 countries right now out of 16 countries of ECOWAS, do not attend ECOWAS meeting as we speak right now. So there is this break, there is this division in the ECOWAS of where to belong and who to fight with, and the those that still maintain democracy in the ECOWAS are saying you have to restore constitutional order. You have to reinstate Mohamed Bazoum in office. There has to be constitution. And the arrowhead of this ECOWAS country is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the current president of Nigeria, who has been in office for 3 months and agitating for war. Not only that, both of us actually know the current state of Nigeria, and the question I'm going to ask you is: with the current state of Nigeria, do you think ECOWAS or Nigeria would succeed in invading Niger, or do you think we have any interest in Niger that we have to send our military to Niger? What do you make of the fact that the president of Nigeria wants to send the military to Niger, owing to the fact that there are so many internal security issues in Nigeria?
Firstly, the United States are a great country. Anytime, any day, they've done well in terms of development and in terms of trying to foster peace in other countries, because some of them have not gone down well. Most of them, you want to say, but countries like the United States and the UK have, regardless, tried to see how they can do their best for some of these countries by giving back.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Doesn't mean they're not taking. They're taking, but giving back.
At least they are more they are better than other, like France.
Yeah, they're better than
France
other countries.
take without giving. France
That's why I would also say that Russia hosting the flag of Russia, I don't exactly know if because for now, it's like looking for trying to actually get a woo a woman or something like that, or or a man, as the case may be these days. You would have to be nice, you'd have to be sweet, but it's when they really get to be with you, and then you really. So I don't exactly know. Just to add to what I said, I don't exactly know if being with Russia or hoisting flags is the savior of the situation. But one thing I know about a country like Nigeria is they are a very crucial part of West Africa. Reasons being that they've got the highest population.
Yeah, 200 million plus.
They are in a crucial position in terms of shipping and moving things around. They've also been critical architects in the development of Africa.
Big brothers of Africa, according to some people.
So, but the issue with the war is not a Nigerian thing, it's an ECOWAS thing.
Okay.
ECOWAS decided under the leadership. Again, there are people who spoke in the parliament. So they decided under the leadership of Nigeria's current president that they would invade. Or no, they've not said they would invade. They said that option is not off the table. The recent meeting, the option of war, of force rather, they didn't use the word war. The option of force is not off the cards. Particularly if you want to look at it from a Nigerian angle. I don't know the interest that I would actually mention. Nigeria, I can't remember Nigeria taking uranium from them. Nigeria does not do anything major I know about with, except maybe I'm not in the Ministry of Commerce, so I might not know. But I do not exactly know any current heavy industrial revolution based on uranium in the country. So if it's about the country, I do not exactly know their interests in Niger. But the interest I know is that they are border states. 53% of Niger speaks Hausa. Hausa is a major language also, coincidentally, or not coincidentally, in Nigeria. And this boils down to the issue of that 1880-something conference.
So they basically divided.
Those people are supposed to they were supposed to be their own country. Cut that part of Nigeria that is largely Hausa speaking, and cut that part that is like 50-something% Hausa speaking in Niger, and you have a country that is united by language.
Exactly.
So deep down, the people in 6 states in Nigeria, Sokoto, Jigawa, Katsina, and 3 other states, including Kebbi, believe that the people in Niger are their brothers. Because they speak the same language, they have a common ancestry. There was no boundaries in 1700. There was no boundaries in 1200, when we still had the Mai, Borno state, which is also bordered there. When we had the Mais of Borno and what have you, the leaders of the various reigns, there was no borders. The Kanuris and what have you are also present in Niger. The travelers themselves, the Fulanese, are also present in Niger.
So basically, it's just like fighting your brothers.
That's why the northern leadership, the northern this of the country and
Yeah.
all that stuff, they've come out to say, we are not going to be part of this fight. It is not exactly right for the country.
And there is
But good thing is that the
there is
Senate
currently
screened
a
it out.
protest going on in Kano State, where the northern part of the country, Nigeria, are protesting and saying we don't want to go to this war. This is not Niger is our brother. We don't want war and the rest of them. And they like it's kind of like being tribalized, is it actually the interest of Nigeria or the interest of ECOWAS or the interest of the North?
Well, again, I said it earlier in my conversation that one of the reasons for military coups in Africa, why it is sustained in Africa and not in some other place, is a problem in ethnicity. The continent lives and thrives on ethnicity, religion, and a diversity that is supposed to be a blessing that in some cases can be a curse. So the Northerners, you won't blame them. I don't blame them because it's like the southern part of Nigeria. I sit down to think at times a lot, and I think about history a lot. I think about boundaries, and one thing I normally the people from a state known as Akwa Ibom State in Nigeria and Cross River, they have common cultures with the southern part of Cameroon. They're supposed to be with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you want to fight the people there, they decide no, we are related. We have their languages are more related to the people there than even to a nearby Abia state.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so
correct.
It kind of tells you the dynamics of the systems. So you can't blame them because they know. Now, there are also unconfirmed reports, allegedly, that during elections, people from this other part of Niger reports, again, allegedly, of people having PVCs, that's permanent voters cards, to come vote in a Nigerian election. When Nigeria decided to take off subsidy, there was tears in Niger.
Yeah.
Even though it extended to other countries like Ivory Coast and what have you. So I think in the reality of it, it's hard to blame them for not wanting a war. But let's to face it as a Nigerian system, or looking at the Nigerian country in context, are they ready for war at this time?
Economically,
there is the Naira is on a free fall. On a free fall against the dollar, on a free fall against the pounds. Are they ready for a war right now? The poverty level the wealth level is shrinking. Poverty is increasing.
Yeah, almost 70%
of
of Nigerians live in poverty right now.
It's crazy. So I do not exactly know if it is what the country needs. And that's where I feel the president must understand that he owes the people a right. It is the people who voted you to be president before ECOWAS. So even if the ECOWAS decide that that's what they want, that's okay. I know they will send 10% of their fighters to come fight. But here's the kicker. Mali and Burkina Faso are also under military rule and supporting Niger. So if they decide to supply their military to support Niger, the Wagner forces decide to supply theirs against both the French and I'm wondering how the US will, because the US probably wouldn't send forces too. Because that might be the playground. It's possible that this could be the playground of the Third World War.
Oh my God. So that would be fighting on the land of Africa and killing people for the interests of basically the West. Okay, for example, I think one of the things that I figured out in this agitation, in this tension, and in this ECOWAS of a thing, is that the push for war, Africa is not and was not or was never known for war. So we are brothers and sisters, we know how to settle our problems. So the push for war is basically for some Western interest And when that happens, the West actually wants to control some part of the African, and imposing their own their belief and their systems on them and the rest of them. But the question I have to ask sometimes is, why is ECOWAS allowing the West to use them to fight a proxy war of fighting their brothers in Niger? Because it does not actually make sense to me that Nigeria is fighting Niger, something that would have been solved with a diplomatic or with diplomacy, sending some emissaries to Niger, negotiating with the military juntas to conduct a democratic elections whereby a democratically elected president will be inaugurated. But the president of Nigeria decided to, the first tone that he came out with was war. Yeah, we will have to invade, like we will have to use force to bring down the military junta. And knowing to the fact that the economy of Nigeria is shaky right now, it is very, 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 very shaky. And the federal government of Nigeria telling the citizens that the country is almost kind of like broke and they don't have money to finance some certain things, to pull people out of poverty and the rest of them. But the amount of money that will be spent on this war in Niger by Nigerian could actually be used to do some other things in Nigeria, and could actually be used to better the lives of Nigeria, because currently what is happening in Nigerian economy, the removal of fuel subsidy, which is hitting the population, and the skyrocketing of the food and the things in the foods, and like a lot of people are not even eating 3 square meal or 2 square or 2 meal in a day, So because of that, why would the president of Nigeria decide to use the word using force, or why would Africa be even discussing about force in the same African soil when something would have been solved using diplomacy? Why are you trying to send the military to go and die when in Nigeria there is internal crisis? Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria, has been living in war for over 13 years now. Boko Haram banditry, which has been one of the major things that's actually crushing the Nigeria economy, because agriculture, the farmers cannot even go to the farm, and the rest of them. And in the eastern part of the Nigeria, where the IPOB, not actually IPOB, the unknown gunmen, as they are called, so are actually causing some chaos and mayhem in some states in the southeastern state of Nigeria. And the Nigerian military are overstretched. They are deployed in different parts of Nigeria to restore peace and the rest of them. And even the war in Nigeria against Boko Haram, the terrorists, has not been successful for over 13 years. Then if Nigerian military is this mighty and they could actually crush the military junta in Niger, why haven't them kind of like suppress the terrorism that is actually bedfelling Nigeria right now, or that's been crashing the Nigerian economy and killing people? When I mean people die on daily basis, like 28 people slaughtered, 50 people slaughtered, 80 people slaughtered, mass burial in the northern part of the country. Then not only that, but the Niger that Nigeria is actually trying to invade, or trying to send their military to restore constitutional order according to them, houses more than 500,000 Nigerians living in IDP camp. People that were actually pushed away by the terrorists, the Boko Haram terrorists in the northern part of the Nigeria. So these 500,000 people are living in IDP camp in Niger. So does it mean that the president of Nigeria doesn't even understand what the foreign policy is all about, or does it mean that he doesn't even care about the people of Nigeria by instigating or making these utterances of war and using force to restore constitutional order in Niger, and not thinking about the interests of Nigeria? Because to me here, the interest of Nigeria is not being prioritized, is not being in place. So it's all about ECOWAS, seeing ECOWAS as not seeing ECOWAS as weak and seeing ECOWAS as a strong institution or organization that could actually foster peace in Africa. And I must say, fostering peace is normal. I strongly believe in peace and I strongly believe in democracy. But the fact that this specific war that Nigeria is actually planning to spend some amount of money, money that could actually change the life of Nigerians, could actually be settled using diplomacy. Why is the Nigerian president not using or not exploring this the diplomatic path of restoring peace in Niger? Then there has been this rumor, not actually rumor, but like, there has been news in some major news in Nigeria that the current president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, during the heat of the election that took place in February 2023, went to France for medical checkup and for medications of whatever that is happening to him, that he has been sick and the rest of them. Could it be that the French government actually have something against him and pushing him to war, or the drug deal that he actually did in America? And when I'm talking about the drug dealing here, I'm not talking. It is not a rumor, because there was a court ruling on that, where he forfeited some amount of money as a result of the proceeds of heroin trafficking in America, in Chicago. So is it because these two countries actually probably have something, because France right now have the health status of the president? They could release that to the public, and that could actually cause some unrest in Nigeria, knowing to the fact that they just survived Buhari, who has been in office for 8 years and who has been sick and spending a lot of taxpayers' money in other Western countries for medical checkup. So could it be the force, or could it be something that is actually engineering this president that hasn't even been in office for over 3 months to invade this a sovereign nation, neighboring nation, a broader nation to Nigeria? And there has been also this news of some military equipment being shipped to Nigeria from an airport in Port Harcourt. There has been some videos going viral on social medias, that these Western nations are actually supplying weapons for using or hiding in the guise of ECOWAS, restoring peace in West Africa, to invade Niger for their own personal interest. So why do you think is these things that I just mentioned like have any substantial or do you think the West actually have some sketchy stuff that they could use against the president, whereby making him pushing him to go to war? Because the election that was conducted in 2023 February, the Nigerian election, is still being contested in court, where the Americans actually have not actually said anything about the election, and this Niger war and the Niger coup actually happened, and all of a sudden everyone has interest. Everyone wants to speak to the president. Kamala Harris spoke to the president, and made it public, even when the election was generally described as a very corrupt and mad election. So do you think there is this? They are holding something against him and using it against him? And also take cognizance of the fact that the FBI refused to release the corruption or the criminal history of Bola Ahmed Tinubu in America. What do you actually make of all these stuff that I mentioned?
Okay, I think I'll first start with one thing I disagree with. I will not say Africa is not known for wars, maybe in recent times, but Africa has actually been a very war-prone continent for generations. We can't forget the fighting forces of Egypt and Nubia back in the ancient Egyptian warfare. We can't forget.
That is ancient time, right?
Yeah, no, I'm coming to the current time. Yeah, we can't forget the Empire of the Northwest Carthage, when it was also in Africa, Sudanic fighting forces too versus Persian and Roman Islamic forces. It was also in Africa. And then the Kushites, Nubian forces fights in Roman regions. It was also in Africa.
Okay.
So I can go on and on and on, down to, West Africa and introduction of guns and things like that. Then I would also describe neocolonialism. It is in very simple terms, the use of economic, political, and other kind of pressures, cultural, to control and influence other countries, especially former dependencies, especially countries that were under colonial or rule of these countries in the past. And they exploit whatever method is possible to have this happen. The world has got 150 something to 166 nations, depending on what some countries recognize as nations, because some nations are not recognized. I would point that out, that Niger is just one small country, a continent. The only thing is just mineral deposits. They've got mineral deposits. That's why they look like they are something. That's where the people are angry. Do you really care about us? Or you just care about what we have? Then about ECOWAS. First is ECOWAS. Let's also put that in clear perspective. Is ECOWAS. So I don't expect Nigeria to be the only ones who would go and fight Niger.
But Nigeria is sending almost like 70% of the military.
We don't know that yet, because the war has not even been agreed. It's just an option if diplomacy doesn't work. And I'll come to the part of diplomacy where I feel the current president of Nigeria made had a little blip. Now, the other countries will send their own military and whatever enforcement percentage they like to send, and then Nigeria will be the ones who will lead the charge. And that's why, who knows, maybe that's why they said, you become the president, because we're expecting this kind of thing in the future, so you can be the president. So, but on a lighter note, that is, there was a little blip in the diplomacy. You don't give sanctions before you do diplomacy. You have diplomacy first before thinking about sanctions. Again, the current president of Nigeria is not a military person. You're not supposed to be military to run. Like I said, I'm saying all these things I'm saying. I have all this knowledge. I have never been in military. It's only maybe my parents who have been military. I'm not a military person. I've never been in military. So, but you don't do sanctions first. You don't provoke people, because they actually sent people for diplomacy. That's why where I was going to.
After a threat of war. After a threat of
exactly.
war, right?
Abdulsalam Abubakar, former head of state, was sent. A couple of other notable names were sent to Niger 2 or 3 times. And the military junta refused to speak with them at some point. The head refused to speak and sent other people. In some cases, did not even show up. And the reasons being that you have threatened them that you're going to fight them. Yeah. You're going to probably take war to them. And I think that's it's not very smart to have done that first. He probably would have gone with diplomacy first. So now diplomacy is no longer an option, because there's something called pride.
Yeah. And
every human has got it. And at this point, the Nigerian junta have the support of their people. A stadium, the Muhammadu something stadium. The stadium was jammed to its brim with people. How many politicians in West Africa would fill a stadium without paying people, or without forcing people, oh, you must come out. Our man is going today.
That means there is general acceptance of the military role.
Exactly. The people are tired.
They're tired.
People are tired of some of these things. And I think about the president of Nigeria having things in the US and France. Again, I am not among those who feel the US should speak about elections in Nigeria.
Okay.
We don't say anything about their elections. Nigerians do not say, Eritrea do not say anything about American elections. And this world has got 160-something countries. I'll still put it again. America cannot go around saying things about Cambodia elections, Sri Lanka elections.
So you have to fight yourself,
See, every country is a sovereign state. If they do it for elections, they'll do it for the minerals. Why would they leave their country? It's like what's going on in Uganda.
Yeah. The current president has been in office for over 30 years, right?
No. It's not about the long duration of leadership. You have a problem with another sovereign country, telling another sovereign country how to live their lives.
I also saw that.
If we decide we want to eat chicken, it is our business. As long as the whole parliament decides it is chicken they want to eat, I believe it is their business to eat chicken.
And 99% of the population actually agree to that this is what the way they want to live their life.
Exactly.
Why are you trying to impose something on them?
I do not think it defeats the word. Sovereignty is English. I'm not speaking French. I'm not speaking French is even English. I'm not speaking an African language, Swahili or Igbo or Hausa or Yoruba. Sovereignty is English. And I believe sovereignty is sovereignty. You don't sit in your country and devalue my currency, decide when my currency goes down, when it goes up. And that's where I have the problem with having another currency of another country being the primary currency of your country, which is what's going on in some of the
West African
French-speaking
countries. Yeah, Francophone countries.
So I really believe that while the president of Nigeria has got things under he might just be threatening because of what you have mentioned. It is possible that there are people who know things. Because if they decide to dig it up, it would cause some level of destabilization in some countries. If they decide to dig up some things about some presidents.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible the man is just threatening and making us have all these discussions. So it will be that, I threatened, but my Senate refused.
Yeah.
Because it is a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer to go to war at the level of the hardship being faced by the particular country called Nigeria. I mean, if they were to use their proxy, I don't care about the population of people that will be sent to war. Maybe other countries will send people. That's not my problem. I mean, making your country the interface, between the war in this and the war in that, and then they send guns, they shoot missiles, you shoot back, those kind of things. They don't have that leverage. So I believe the man is just threatening because he's a politician. This man has been a politician since the year 1999. In short, before 1999, he was already a politician. This is the same man who has been able to get his people to lead a particular state in the country over and over again. When one man refused, put him out and put someone else. And these are things that are not cast in stone. We don't have proofs for them. But it is alleged that it is who the former president of Lagos decides that will be president, a governor that will probably become governor, allegedly. I don't have allegedly. So I do believe that this could just be a threat because it's a no-brainer. It's visible to the blind and audible to the deaf. And that's why the Nigerian people, they don't even want to speak to them anymore because they've got enough support. If you want to enter their country, they are under military rule. They can get forces from Burkina Faso. And Burkina Faso has killed. That is, the current president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahima Traoré, was sent to Mali for a particular situation such as this. They are skilled
Yeah,
in
trained by the
country.
West.
Exactly, they are skilled. I don't even care about their training, but they are skilled. I mean, I'm not talking about their training, that's what I mean. They are skilled at, they have experience. That's where I'm going to. They have
Okay.
experience in, this is something they have, it's like they have experience in computer programming. They have been doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
The current president has never seen war.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So you are now going to face 2 or 3 countries who will come together, coupled with Russia, who are currently at war and knows
Yeah, the
what war is.
Wagner group that is fastly approaching Africa.
Again, I probably will use this platform to beg the West to just let this continent be. Some things that are not part of the problems of the continent at the moment. Some things being discussed, or somebody decides to be identified as a wolf. That's not part of the. The country is not at that level where they've grown enough to eat, to think of minority people, their beliefs. Are we for Russia? Are we for US? Are you for China?
Exactly.
That's not the problem. The problem is that the continent needs sovereignty. Let's stop this lip service and the diplomatic way of romancing sovereignty. If you believe putting a military base in Cuba is not good for a particular country, I think it's not so nice to put that same military base
in
You're correct. Ghana.
You're correct.
If you believe putting a military base in Ukraine is not good for Russia, I think it is unfair to take your military base to Niger.
Exactly.
It's not fair to Nigeria.
Russia is actually condemning the fact that ECOWAS wants to use force to evict the military juntas in Niger, but the same Russia invaded a sovereign nation that is currently in war with Ukraine. There is a lot of the hypocrisy here and a lot of interest, though I don't blame them. I blame Africans. I blame African leaders who never stood up by themselves, who have always been running to them for help, and who has been doing all sort of corruption things, and when the 1% of the elites actually connive with these Western leaders to kill their people, to exploit their people and to make everything look as if like live in corruption, live their luxurious lifestyle, and their children, sending their children abroad, and the rest of them, and then the other poor masses live in abject poverty. I think the whole thing here is not. I personally don't want to like lay the blame on foreign nations. I personally think the whole problem actually started from Africa, because I don't see the need of you becoming a president of your country as an African, and knowing to the fact that you are a sovereign nation, and also knowing to the fact that you are independent, and you still allow some certain things. You still allow some certain shady stuffs to go on in the background. For example, another foreign country housing your foreign reserve, and printing money for you, and making some decisions that is not expected to be made, and that's why
it's very challenging. It's sorry to cut in. I just wanted to touch that. I said I just wanted to react to that quickly.
Okay,
then I'll let you
fine.
go.
It's fine. No, it's fine.
It's quite challenging, really. It's quite challenging, revolting. Those who have revolted have not ended well.
That's because there has been this alliance between the elites and the corrupt elites and the West.
Of course, I do not believe that. I do not believe that the fact that you failed means you should stop trying. But a lot of people who have tried in the past have not found it easy. Thomas Sankara, the former leader of the current Burkina Faso. He's seen as the hero. He's seen as a hero till date. And that's what Ibrahima Traore is trying to represent. Thomas Sankara was more of a Marxist revolutionary and a Pan-Africanist too. And their people loved him. The country was on a very fast spiral when he was a military ruler.
Yeah.
But guess what? He was killed.
Mysteriously.
Exactly my point. So those who have come out with the agenda of being against the West have not always found it
easy.
A very, very easy path to toe. And I cannot hide the fact that if you followed, because Sankara, I've mentioned Sankara now, I've been touched. I cannot hide the fact that the French government refused to release the military documents on the killing of Thomas Sankara, after his widow accused France of masterminding his assassination in 2017. I cannot hide that fact. Now, 34 years later, of course, that's in 2021, 2 years ago, former President Compaoré and then 13 others were indicted, for complicity, blah, 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 in his murder. But a particular government knew about it. And his wife cried out that you guys masterminded the killing and assassination. I'm not saying they did it, but they should have released the documents. And then we know how these things are romanced, and then some people will come and just find a way to, some people have to pay, Yeah. So another president comes in and says the former president, so that he will not be contested against, was part of the people who killed, let's deal with it. So I think that is, I mean, we can talk about Patrice Lumumba. If you know about Patrice Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba was another man who would have represented his ideology.
Yeah, exactly.
If you look back at his life, oh my goodness. That was a young man who was visionary, excellent, trained, smart, and had all it takes to take his country to the El Dorado. This guy fought these fights at 30, 20-something, and was killed at 35. These are some examples of I'm tired of it, I want to fight back. So I think conscience and little reactions like this might be what a particular continent needs to shift to the next level. I am not against having interests in other countries. We're all business people.
Yeah,
we want to have the best for our country.
It's normal to do that.
The Soviets are interested in the best for them. They don't care about you.
Yeah.
Russia are interested in the best thing for Russia.
Exactly.
As a president, if I'm a president of I'm the prime minister of the UK today, I'm interested in the interest of the UK. I don't care about your country.
Yeah, that's how it works.
The country is not my business. My interest is my country. How do I beat you in the international atmosphere of politics to get something to benefit my people?
My people.
You too, you'll be thinking, how do I get something from you? Maybe not a lose-lose situation, maybe a win-win situation. How do I get something from you to enhance my country?
Okay.
And that's where I feel some of the older countries, particularly the colonialist countries, should have a rethink. China is coming and saying, we want to train your soldiers.
Yeah, so I was about
$10 million.
I was about to
you are sending $10 million for
the silence of China in all
journalists to fight their government. China is saying, no, we are sending military to come and train your military, or we are going to partner with your media organization. We are going to partner with this to help, I don't trust them. Anybody, again, everybody's fighting for their country, so I can't trust nobody. I don't think you should trust anybody. But we need to rethink our roles in developing countries. We need to rethink the way we handle developing countries. The countries that were colonialist or you colonized in the past are no longer countries, and this is affecting even their mentality. It's like racism. Racism is just being discussed. Oh, it's gone. It is not gone, bro. So if it is still on paper and has not gone, it's the same thing. Colonialism is still going on. So I just think that's the thing about Niger. And bringing it down to Nigeria, he who wants to build a house, I'm a fan of the Holy Book, the Bible. He who wants to build a house must first sit down to count the cost, if he will be able to finish it.
Exactly.
If you want to start a war, you must count the cost. It's like the president of Ukraine. I want to believe he counted the cost, because you acted a movie as a president does not translate into leadership as a president.
Yeah.
This is no longer acting. This is leadership.
This is real life, you know.
Yeah. So I want to believe he counted the cost. And he's getting support. I don't want to comment on the war. It is not my business, another country.
Yeah, it's not your.
I am in a different country, and what is going on in this country now is my business. And what is going on in the other countries that I am related to by birth and by nationality. But Russia and Ukraine, not my concern. I don't know what is going on there. They have history together. I don't know who is right and who is wrong.
They are closely almost the same people, just like Niger and Nigerian, you know.
Exactly. All I just want is for people to stop dying. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the most important things. Like, people should not die. People should not die for the. People should not die for the decision of the old elites who would never send their children to war front. You know, in the olden days where there is this kings go to war and the rest of them. Actually, the kings actually go to the war with the armies, not sending the armies and sitting down in his palace, you know. But recently, in the modern days, an old man would use a pen to sign a paper and send the children of the poor masses to go and die in the name of fighting for a war. So that is one of the things. So in a nutshell, wisdom, I just wanted to summarize the whole thing and what you expect in this the whole tension in West Africa, and possibly what you think is the solution, just in a summary to wrap everything up and to end everything.
Okay. First of all, thanks a lot for the opportunity and. For your insightful ideas also. You see, about first, I will start from a general perspective, the larger Africa. There are things that are primary concerns in the continent. And one of them is respect, because you can't legally rape someone and expect them to keep quiet and be raped forever. They are going to react.
Exactly.
So I do believe that the African continent and the West, they need each other. And I'm a fan of a lot of ethics of the West. The United States, I respect them a lot.
Yeah.
The UK, I respect them a lot. And how they've handled things. But I do believe that Africa must be allowed to grow. You cannot believe a child cannot do anything and you pet the child into stupidity. You have to let the child grow. Yeah. You can't believe if I leave them alone, they will kill themselves. No, let them be. Let them handle their stuff. Because one reason why the West would still tell you that they have military bases is because of the anarchy that occurs too within the African continent. You leave them together, give them guns, they kill themselves. Sometimes you have ethnic and tribal wars, clashes of lands and things like that. You know, I do believe that despite all these things, the best way to help is not to police them like children. It is because of the issues of colonialism that some of these things exist. If Africa was allowed to grow, I look at some definitions and, why did Africa not wear suits and clothes? They don't have cold in their continent. What are you expecting them to wear?
I mean, it is literally overhot. I mean, right now, it is so much hot in America that nobody wears suits. That's how it is in Africa.
Exactly, it's a dusty continent. It is very hot. Sahara is in Africa. So you didn't expect them that they should wear suits when you went to see them. So the fact that they wore skirts without things on top doesn't mean they are primitive. It was only their own environment. You build suits because of your environment. That's why you wear suits, something inside again, and then another thing.
That is recognizing the culture of people and respecting it.
Exactly. So you look at them and you think Africa colonized Europe twice.
Mm-hmm.
Egypt first.
Yeah.
And when the Egyptians lost it, the Moors also moved into Spain. And they were dressing this way.
Yeah.
They just had maybe something bigger to cover up if you want to show who you are. But everybody, if it's not cold, they were free.
Yeah.
So judging that, your environment and development, and I think the Africans would also need to sit up in this regard. Love yourself. Respect yourself.
Yep.
Your hair is brisk, love yourself. The British man can't see me and tell me I have an accent. You have an accent too. Try to speak my language. Let's know.
Exactly.
You have an accent.
Let's know if you can speak my language.
Let's know if you can pronounce my name. But I thought of my own language growing up, and I thought of your own language growing up. It's not very easy, man. So I think the Africans should also respect themselves. As much as I want the others to actually let the children grow. Yes, we can have these international bodies just in case there's an issue. You sit with them and discuss what's the problem. And then that is even when I think you should see what's going on in Ukraine, in Russia. Perhaps if the war continues, maybe Russia will contact China and some of the BRIC countries, they would supply them weapons. That is okay. But Russia will have to ask you for weapons. Not you deciding, okay, I think Western Russia is correct. Let me give them weapons. Please come, let's discuss. Let me give you weapons to go and fight. No, I think it is wrong. It is part of the problem. Let the countries grow. Every country evolved. If evolution means fighting, let them fight. Because some of the problems were caused by merging people who know nothing about each other.
America became America today because some people paid the price. Some people fought for it.
Exactly. So let them be, and just watch from afar and ask them if they need help. And make sure you have the interest of the country at heart. You could still buy uranium for cheap.
Exactly.
Because they've not grown to a level of
using it
working on uranium. So you can still buy it for cheap. You can supply something else. Why not tell Nigeria, okay, I'm no longer going to be stealing your this. You guys don't have permanent electricity. So this is what we're going to exchange things. For 2 years, you're going to give me oil. And I'm going to build systems that will make sure you have electricity constantly. After the 2 years contract.
That is a fair trade. That is a fair trade.
I have oil. That is exchange, clearly. Nobody is exploiting each other. But now you tell the country, don't worry, just stay where you are, don't grow, I'll just come and take. So it's a problem. So I feel first they should respect Africa and Africa should respect themselves. And overall, about military juntas, I don't think it is the best way forward. Military regimes always end up becoming, not always, but most times end up becoming totalitarian and oligarchic and authoritarian. They refuse to leave.
Dictatorship.
Because Ibrahim Traoré is celebrated today, but I want to see what he will do next year. Next year, he said there will be elections next year, but all of a sudden now he said until the jihadi, the groups that are causing some issues in the country, until he deals with them squarely, there will not be any democratic elections.
Would he be able to leave the confluence?
Would he be able to leave the confluence of power? So I think that's what I would say. I still believe, in my heart of hearts, to be very open, I believe there's a form of leadership that every country should adopt by themselves. It doesn't have to be democracy or military, but by themselves. They could take democracy and localize it. That you wear suits, heavyweight suits, or big sweater in the US or in the UK at 14 degrees does not mean if you land in Africa with that same clothes, you will survive. You would sweat, maybe you sweat to your pants or something until you take it off. So you can localize formulas. Take formulas from other places and localize it to your own self.
I believe we can localize your own culture.
Yeah, like a particular country, Nigeria to be precise. They are not. I do not think the idea of having a one president system is the best, because there are regions, and I still feel those regions should be allowed to lead themselves. And then we have maybe one presiding council over the leader, over this leadership. But I do not believe that a general president is the best thing for the country, because you cannot tell someone who's from the East to know everything about the North. I for one, for example, has not really stayed in the North for so long. I've stayed there for a while, but not so long. And I don't know every single thing about them. So I'll have to rely on special advisors when I become president. But if you have someone who knows the region, it might really help in solving some of those problems. Overall, that's what I think. And I believe if Africa must rise, this is one opportunity. There is no country that rose that did not do it with some level of resistance. Nobody will let you be until you say no. China became an enemy because they decided to grow. Japan was the previous person who decided to grow. Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, there are countries who decided, no, we are tired, we want to shift. So for you to shift from where you are, you need some force. Every state, Newton's law of motion, everything remains on a state of rest until a force is applied. So I really feel it is not a bad thing that there are reactions all across the length, and not just West Africa, all across the length and breadth of Africa. But let us make the most of the opportunity. Let the West also make the most of the opportunity, because if this continues, it might get to a point where it will be worse. The reaction of the next generation might be worse than just military coups and deportations.
Okay.
Sorry to add, about Nigeria's president. Wisdom is profitable to direct. It is not. I don't think it is even a thing to discuss about Nigeria going to war or leading a war of the ECOWAS. It is. You mentioned something that is very right. You can't take. Where do you want to take the soldiers from? There's issues in the southeast. There are issues in the northeast. There are issues in the northwest. There are issues in the southwest. So where exactly do you want to take soldiers to go prosecute a war? Where exactly do you want to pick them from? The southeast is vulnerable. We have issues with sit at home and watch view. Every part of the country has some security issues that you need military presence to keep some sanity in the system.
Maybe you put them out and cause chaos in the whole country. Maybe that could be the best, So, Wisdom, thank you very much for honoring this invitation. I really appreciate that, and I would love to see you again the next time. I would love to interact with you again on some political issues in West Africa and Nigeria, Africa as a whole. Thank you very much. If this is the first time you're coming to this channel, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification button so that you can get the notification whenever we drop the content of this political analysis. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Ken.
Okay.